Welcome back to Untaming Masculinity, the podcast where we tackle issues relevant to men and their journeys to reclaim their masculinity. I'm Dan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host and good friend, Brad. What is going on today, buddy?
You are so chipper. It's amazing.
I'm in a good mood.
It's in a good mood. I'm probably getting sick or something. I feel terrible, but I'm good. Right. Do you want to tell everybody why you're so chipper?
I am in a good mood. We just had our Christmas party, so I may or may not have had a few cocktails this afternoon. So
you should see his face. It's incredible.
That's all right. This will be a good episode. So I know you had a topic that you wanted to discuss. So why don't you roll into it?
All right. So speaking of Christmas parties, one thing that's pretty common with guys is around the holidays, it's easy to overeat, overindulge, kind of fall off the wagon when it comes to workout routines, self-improvement routines. Some of those things go by the wayside when we're reveling and celebrating and having the holidays.
Absolutely.
So I felt it was worth a conversation of how men get back on track, how guys get up, get after it again. We're not calling this New Year's resolutions. I am not a believer in New Year's resolutions. But I also am a huge believer in enjoying Christmas with my loved ones. So it becomes, how do we transition from probably going a little too hard around the holidays to getting back where we need to go?
Mm-hmm. Do you have a specific spot you want to start in, or?
Yeah. So I've got a tale that I'm going to regale everybody with. It's a confessionary tale. It's a shameful tale. So I had mentioned before our AMA that I was about to head out to a cowboy Christmas themed Christmas party with my wife's family. And one thing I did not mention is that my wife's family goes all out when it comes to the food in these functions. And I oftentimes find myself overindulging in food. So I've been very dedicated and focused on trying to get right. Lose a few pounds. I'm a little heavier than I'd like to be. So I downloaded, there's a fitness tracking app developed by Lane Norton called Carbon. It's like MyFitnessPal, but he has like an algorithm, does some coaching. It's pretty awesome. So I've decided I need to be incredibly intentional with this thing. So every damn thing I ate, I put in. I ate a lot that day. I showed up at the party. There were jalapeno poppers. I can't resist jalapeno poppers. I think I might have had 8. I had some cookies, I had some flank steak, I had beans and cowboy caviar and all this crap, and I logged it all as best I could, as accurately as I could, and I looked at the end of the day, and the number of calories I had consumed was a staggering 7,300. I felt it. I felt it for 2 days afterwards.
Oh, yeah.
My stomach was in open rebellion against me. But I'll tell you what. I recognized that, and I went into it not with the intention of eating 7,000 calories, but I kind of just let myself have a good time and made the decision after that, all right, time to dial it back in. I've dialed it back in since. And then with Carbon, one of the things you do is you weigh yourself weekly. It's kind of a progress.
Yeah.
Are you on track? Do they need to adjust your goals? I got on the scale this morning. I was down a pound from the previous week. I know that's not amazing, but the fact of the matter is I had 7,300 calories in a day during the week, and I was still able to lose weight. It's a very eye-opening thing for me in that, we make mistakes. We do stuff, especially around the holidays. But that doesn't mean we can't just keep going and get back after it.
So you brought up an interesting point right at the end, right? You talked about making mistakes. I don't think you made a mistake.
That was a conscious decision.
Right? I think it was a conscious decision. Exactly.
Absolutely.
And I think that guys in general, we need to have those conversations with ourselves about the idea of whether we are willing to make those conscious decisions about whether we're going to indulge that day, right? Because we're going to go to the Christmas parties, we're going to go to the New Year's Eve parties, we're going to go to the Christmas holiday parties like I went to today. Are you going to indulge that day, or are you going to be strict that day? And there's no right or wrong answer. It's all dependent on your goals, your mindset, and where you're going. So I know for me personally, much like your family Christmas party there, I went to a holiday party today for my company, and I decided that today is a day where I'm not counting my calories. I'm going to enjoy myself. I'm not going to be completely gluttonous, but I'm not going to track my calories. I'm not going to track, I'm not going to log my food. I'm going to enjoy myself, be semi-conscious of what I eat and drink, but I'm going to enjoy the moment, enjoy the time with people. And then tomorrow I'll get back on the horse. That to me, that reset, that ability to say, okay, today is a day where we have no consequence isn't the right word, but today is a day where we have no filter. And then tomorrow we're back on the horse is what's really important about the process. Because without those days where you can kind of enjoy yourself, it makes the days where you're being strict and being strong harder. And it's very easy to apply this to diet, but you can apply this to almost anything in life. You can apply this to schoolwork, you can apply this to work, you can apply this to your marriage, whatever it is. But the days where you decide that I'm gonna pull off the reins a little bit and enjoy myself, but I'm gonna make sure that I get back to work the next day. Those are the days that make all the hard work worth it.
Yeah. There was a word bouncing around my head as you were talking about that, and that word is recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Like you recognize the situation that you're in, and recognition is so often what can get away from us. How many times have you seen yourself have a bad day? Whether it's at work where you kind of half-ass it, whether it's at home with your kids where you spend way more time on your phone than you should, whether it's eating too much, whether it's skipping the gym, then the next day it becomes that much easier to continue to do those things. And if you repeat that 2, 3, 4 days in a row, all of a sudden there's a habit forming of being lazy. Laziness is easy, right? And as we've talked about, we want to choose the harder path. We want to do hard things, but man, sometimes there are just some days where taking it easy and chilling just sounds so damn good.
Yeah. This is something I talk about with my trainer a lot. And we have the conversation a lot about how, you cannot be perfect 100% of the time. Now, listen, if you're in a bodybuilding competition and you know that in 12 weeks I have to be on stage at X% body fat, for those 12 weeks, you can probably be perfect. You can probably hold the line and go. And, if you have other fitness goals with a set timetable, you can probably reach it. But in general, in fitness, in all the things you do, there's going to be a moment here or there where you slip. You get what I call the fuckets. And the idea there is to not make that a habit. So with my trainer, we talk about, hey, listen, every once in a while, you're going to have that day where, you have the bad meal, you have a shitty workout, you have no workout, whatever it is. But don't make that one instance into a bad day, a bad week, a bad month, a bad year. Don't let it propagate, right? Enjoy the moment, relish in that kind of freedom, that release, and then get back on that horse and really dial it back in. Because it's those moments of dedication, not motivation, that get you towards your goal.
I really like that line. That was good. Man, you need slightly tipsy Dan more often. You're spouting wisdom. But so something that you said really resonated there. It's this idea that, if you make the conscious decision to take a day off, you have to work that much harder to ensure that day off does not repeat itself. You have to look at that day, leave it behind you, and move forward. Say, you know what? Today I didn't bring it. Today I kind of enjoyed myself. Today I was a little lazy. I need to make sure that tomorrow I'm not. That recognition, that understanding, and that decision. When you tell yourself, you know what? Today I didn't have it. Tomorrow I'm not going to let that happen. Simply by telling yourself that, you're reinforcing to yourself that was just a day. That's not who you are. That's not a pattern. It was just a moment.
The other part to that, though, too, is also to enjoy that moment.
Oh, for sure.
Right? And enjoy that moment of indulgence, whatever that looks like for you. We're talking about exercise and diet, but it could be, enjoying that moment of decreased workload, that moment of, when your wife and kids are away and you've just got nothing to do around the house, whatever that is, where you're just pulling off the gas a little bit. Enjoy that moment, relish in that moment, appreciate the fact that at that moment, you don't have to put in all the hard work. And at the same time, use that to understand the place that the hard work is taking you to. I think there's a balancing act there, or a dichotomy of mindset where you can enjoy backing off from your work a little bit, and it both makes you appreciate the moment that you're in, and also makes you appreciate the results that all that hard work is pushing you towards. Does that make sense to you?
I gotcha. I have a question along those lines, though, because
Mm-hmm.
we, as a lot of guys on the path, if you will, we're pretty hard. We're driven. We're very motivated to continue, grinding, for lack of a better word. How does a man in that state allow himself to enjoy a day like that? Like, how do you determine that? What does that look like?
The question becomes, are you making a conscious decision to have that day, or are you finding yourself, for lack of a better word, failing into that day? So there's two things. If it's the former, if you're consciously deciding to have a day where, much like you or me today, where you went to your party, I went to a party, and we just kind of consciously made that decision to enjoy the moment, then I think that's really all it is consciously deciding to enjoy that moment, enjoy that time, with the realization that, okay, I get this time period, whatever that is, to enjoy, and then I have to tighten the reins and bring it back in. The flip side to that, or the secondary one, is where you have a situation where things just go sideways, and you have a moment where you don't hold true to your goals. So we're going to stay with the fitness and the diet and thing. You just have this moment where you go out and you binge on the nachos and the beer and the burger and whatever, and you just say, "Damn it, I screwed up." Okay, you screwed up. You had a bad meal. You had a bad workout. You had a bad day at work. You had a bad day at home. Are you going to make that a habit? Are you going to say, "Screw it, I screwed up this one time, and now for the rest of eternity, I'm going to screw up"? Or are you going to say, "This was a moment in time. I was a little weak. Now I need to get back on track and do things the right way"? It's doing that second option where you kind of give yourself that grace. You give yourself that peace of mind to say, it's okay that I messed up, because I'm going to come at it twice as hard tomorrow, and I'm going to get back on the horse. I'm going to get back on track, and I'm going to do things the right way. And that's the dedication versus motivation thing that I was talking about. You're dedicated to the process.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to hit you with another question just because it came up to me.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears a little bit. There's a guy who hasn't just had a bad day. He's had a bad week or a bad month, whether that's struggling with porn, struggling with eating too much. He hasn't gone to the gym. He's been a loser of a father who spent way too much time on his phone and has ignored his children. He's recognized that along the way, but he can't stop succumbing. What does it look like for him? Because it's not as easy as just saying, well, I got to get back on. I'm going to choose dedication.
Right. It's not just this was a moment in time, right? This is more of a continuous process, for lack of a better word, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is a tough one because you have to really think about what's going on in life. Why are you doing what you're doing, and why do you not want to be doing what you're doing? And in my mind, it's that understanding of, okay, so you mentioned looking at porn before. Let's just use that for an example, because that's a really uncomfortable one for most guys to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm looking at porn because it's a quick fix to a problem. I'm getting a quick release, whatever. But what is that doing to me? What is that doing to my relationship with my significant other? What is that doing from my mindset towards women in general? All those things. And you start to think about those, and you really have to grasp the why first, of why you want to make that change, and understand internally what that means to you before you can implement a change at all. I mean, I'll be honest, that's happened to me with a lot of things. Fitness is one of them. We've talked, I don't know if we've talked on the show about it before, but we've talked privately about our individual struggles with porn as well. I've had to think about, okay, what does not being in shape mean for me? What does struggling with porn mean for me? And why do I feel bad about those things? And I have to use that mindset to help me change my patterns. And the important thing to remember here too is it doesn't always necessarily have to be a personal, solo, not shared with others type of battle. You can rely on your group of friends. You can rely on your partners. You can rely on your family to help you through those situations. I've gotten to the point where, my girls kid with me and be like, "Dad, you didn't work out today," because they know that that's kind of an important thing for me, and it's part of my routine, it's part of the man I want to be.
I would go beyond saying I can turn to folks around me and say I should turn to those around me. We've talked so often about forming a pack, having a band of brothers. I'll tell you what, one of the first things you made a lot of incredible points. Excuse me. The first being the why, right? We have to understand why we're doing what we're doing, why we want to stop doing what we're doing. With porn, obviously, porn destroys intimacy. It genuinely does. There's science that backs that up. And when I look at porn, I am directly impacting my marriage and my sexual relationship with my wife, period. That's a pretty damn good reason to stop looking at it.
Yeah.
So that's step one, is the why. For me, I've realized in my life that I cannot stop doing something until I've made that realization. And then once I've made that realization, I reach out to others for help. I'll reach out to you. I'll reach out to others that are in my close-knit circle, my band of brothers, to say, "Hey guys, I'm struggling with this." Coming back to Layne Norton, there's a really powerful quote that I may have shared at some point in one of our episodes. But he was having an interview with Andy Frisella on the Real Life podcast. And he said this line, and it stuck with me. "The magic is in the work you're not wanting to do." I always think about that. And when it comes to something like, just use porn, kind of continuing on with that example. When you're in a rut with porn, you do what you can to make it very easily accessible. It's on your phone. Oh, it's before I go to bed. I'll pull it up while I'm in the bedroom, or I'll pull it up in the bathroom, or I'll pull it up this place, that place, the other. You know that taking the first conscious step to get rid of that temptation is, what to do. You just don't want to do it. Like that, if that means putting a privacy filter on your phone, turning on the parental settings, telling your wife, whatever that looks like, that's the step you have to take first, because you don't want to do it. Like that reptilian brain that just wants the satisfaction of the quick dopamine hit from looking at porn doesn't want you to do that. But that deep down inside, that's the first thing you need to do. By doing that, that's going to enable you to start down the path of redemption. And you have to be incredibly intentional. It's the same thing with the gym. It's the same thing with getting back after it at work or with your kids or whatever. It's understanding, it's that recognition. It's also then identifying, I need to let somebody else know because I can't do this alone. I need to get this out there. And then I have to do the stuff that I know that I should do that I don't want to do because that little voice inside of my head that wants the quick dopamine hit doesn't want me to do that. And then I proceed from there.
So what you're talking about there is barrier to entry. So for good habits that we want to develop or get back on track on, we have to reduce the barrier to entry. So if we want to start going to the gym, we make our pre-workout and lay out our gym clothes the night before so that when we wake up in the morning, we have very little barrier to entry to actually just getting dressed and going. Yeah. If we want to quit porn, maybe you increase the barrier to entry by not bringing your phone into the bathroom or whatever it is.
Yep.
Right. So it's about, for me, I know personally that if I decrease the barrier to entry for the positive habits that I want to restart, and I decrease the barrier to entry for the bad habits that I want to stop, that's where I start to head towards success. And if I do things the opposite of that, that's where I start to fall off the cliff.
Comes back to James Clear and Atomic Habits.
Right.
That's the whole concept of that book, is the things you want to succeed in, make them as easy as possible. Our minds take shortcuts. That's how they're wired. That's how they've evolved. That's how we've adapted as human beings. Is your mind will always choose the easiest path, the path of least resistance.
Yep. So
any habit you're looking to either make or break, keep that in mind. Put yourself in a position where, coming back to porn, make it very difficult to look at. If you're trying to get back to going to the gym, lay your clothes out. If you're wanting to make sure you're not stuck on your phone while you're home with your kids, put your phone in a drawer where you can't see it, or you can't feel those vibrations. I'll tell you what, the more you do that, the easier it becomes. And next thing you know, you're back on track. But you have to remain intentional, because part of your mind is always trying to convince you to succumb and to fail and to go back to how things were. Those dopamine hits, and there's just these responses that are cued. Like your mind tells you, oh, when I'm stressed, I look at porn. When I look at porn, I rub one out, and then I get a dopamine hit and feel good for a second. But invariably, what's kind of interesting about these bad habits or these things, you think about overeating. You might get that quick dopamine hit, but every time afterwards, you feel terrible. But our minds don't remember the terrible feeling. They remember that quick, instantaneous dopamine.
It's kind of funny how that works too, right?
Yeah.
So like drinking is a good example. Invariably, you're going to feel like crap the next day.
Yeah.
But your mind doesn't remember the feeling like crap part. It remembers how good you felt in the moment.
Yeah.
So you have to not pay attention to your mind. You have to pay attention to the grander scheme of things and how your overall experience was. Do you want to avoid that feeling like crap part? Well, then you also don't get that quote unquote high of when you're drunk. Just use drinking as an example, or that moment of ecstasy when you're looking at porn and you rub one out. There is a certain penalty is not the right word, but I'm not finding it right now. But there's a certain self-consciousness and a certain ability to damper your experience that you have to have in order to stay on the right track. And like we said before, you're going to slip, but it's making sure that you look at the bigger picture the whole time and come back to these are the right actions for me. These are the barriers to entry that I wanted to decrease, and these are the barriers to entry that I want to increase to either promote or decrease certain traits, certain activities that are either beneficial or detrimental to me.
Yeah. And any good thing in your life, the results are latent. They don't happen immediately. Every single good thing, doesn't matter whether that's getting in shape, getting a promotion at your job, obviously having a great relationship with your wife. All of those things take time. They take effort. And that effort isn't always seen, from one day to the next. Sometimes it is. Sometimes if you've been on a really good path working out, you'll get in front of the mirror one day and be like, damn, I look good. But to your point, you have to continually remember what you're after, what your objective is. It comes back to that concept of a vision, having a vision, knowing who you are, where you want to go. That's going to drive you. When you're in a rut, or when you are struggling, or you had a really bad day, or you enjoyed yourself and ate a whole lot of calories, you know that it's okay and you can push past that because you were so singularly focused on what you were striving to become that you recognize that, accept that, and keep pushing forward.
I really like that idea of the things that are good for you are a latent experience or a latent result versus the immediate result of, and we can go back to the eating, we can go back to the porn, we can go back to stuff like that, where you get that immediate reaction, but the long-term results are negative versus if you choose to eat healthy, you choose to work out, you choose to avoid temptation, the immediate result is not necessarily as satisfying as the long-term effect. There's a balance there, I would argue too, where, we need to be able to, and we've talked about this in the past too, about enjoying the journey as well as the destination, right? Yeah. So you need to enjoy the little victories, you need to enjoy the little moments in life, but they can't come at the detriment of the long-term goal. So your situation with your family was a perfect example. You've been busting your ass in the gym, you've been busting your ass with your diet. This was a big family event. It's the holidays. It's something that annually you guys just do. So you can almost plan for it in a sense where you can train up to it. You enjoy that day and then you get back on the horse. The key part of that is not making that one moment in time be your habit going forward.
Yeah.
It's understanding that this is a deviation from the norm. Your norm is, I'm going to be a strong-willed man who works out, who eats healthy, who makes good decisions for my nutrition and my fitness. And I'm also a family man. And that means that on occasion, I'm going to enjoy myself and enjoy my time with others and not worry about this particular point in life. And it's about balancing all those areas of life and making sure that you put importance where it needs to be. you could argue that, your fitness is of high importance. It very much is. As men, it is important that we are physically fit, both of mind, body, and spirit. And it's also important that we're present for our families. So we have to make the decision, both in the long term and the short term, about what's important and where we place our priorities.
I mean, you'll always hear us talk about the fact that growth comes through struggle. We have to struggle to be able to grow, but we shouldn't have to spend every single day struggling. Growth is not a linear thing. It's not constantly laser focused on where you need to go. You have to be able to. Go ahead.
Right. I was going to say, what's the purpose of the struggle if you're not allowed to enjoy it every once in a while?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, the struggle is important. It is important to be a strong man, to be struggling, to constantly be improving. And if we do that our entire lives and don't enjoy a single moment, what's the purpose? I mean, we can get into a much bigger discussion about spirituality and that kind of stuff. But the fact of the matter is, you get one shot at this thing called life, and you should be enjoying it along the way to some extent or another.
And being disciplined and doing the work will in turn actually allow you to enjoy life more.
Right.
I think, everybody's drawn to this idea of Dave Ramsey and the debt snowball. And Dave Ramsey, one thing that's very interesting about Dave Ramsey is if you actually listen to him or read any of his books, the debt snowball, this whole concept of you're eating beans and rice, you are struggling, who cares? You've got to get through this stage until you've got, 6 months of income in your savings account. People take that incredibly literally and think that if you're on the path, you cannot enjoy a day until you get there. But if you actually listen to Dave Ramsey, he talks about that being for the people who are in such destitute situations that they have no other alternative. That's what they have to do. He'll talk a lot about, his cars and some of the different things that he enjoys doing. Life is to be enjoyed, even in that scenario. There are people that might be backed into a corner where some of that enjoyment might have to wait. It comes back to this concept of latency and needing to wait. But you have to be able to take a day to recognize, pat yourself on the back, say, you know what, I'm getting after it. I think sometimes it's so easy to be dismissive of congratulating yourself on progress. You think of the men's self-improvement space. You think of everybody who is so laser focused on being like Goggins or Jocko, and they can't take a day off. They can't celebrate. And invariably what happens is most of those guys that I know are really happy. Yes, I read Jocko. I watch David Goggins on Instagram, and I'm inspired by them, and they help keep me pushing forward. But at the same time, I have enough self-recognition that I can take a day off for myself. I can say, you know what? Job well done. Like there was a time this summer, my wife and I decided to call in sick to work, take our kids to the local amusement park here called Lagoon, and just spend the day with them. Spent a whole lot of money to do it. Had time of our lives. It was awesome. And it was entirely worthwhile because you know what? You get done with that day where you enjoy yourself and you're that much more inspired to get back after it.
Yeah. I 100% hear what you're saying. The key to this whole thing is understanding that it's a balancing act. It's very easy for people to do exactly what you just talked about. Take the day off of work, take their kids to the park, whatever it is, and just say, you know what, I deserve this. I need this moment. I need this time. I need to just get off of the train for a minute. The problem becomes when that becomes so repetitive that it's almost the norm, as opposed to we're going to stick to the plan. We're going to do the hard work. We're going to follow the plan. And those days are going to be the exception to the rule versus them being essentially the rule.
Yeah.
So guys particularly need to make sure that we are working our plan and we have a plan in place. You should have a plan in place for your fitness. You should have a plan in place for your family. You should have a plan in place for your career, for yourself, for just your self-development. And it's okay on occasion to deviate from that plan, to enjoy the moment, to soak in the fruits of your labor. But to Brad's point, those need to be the exception to the rule. The plan needs to be the rule. There's, like I said before, there's only a certain amount of time you get on this planet, and you need to enjoy moments of it while you're here. But you'll enjoy those moments more if you're working hard in between them.
I was having a conversation with one of our mutual friends a couple months ago about this concept that the difference in the line between a good man and a bad man is razor thin. A
Mm-hmm.
man who is focused, dedicated, and after it, the difference between him and somebody who is lazy, who isn't getting anything accomplished, is a lot narrower than you think. The differentiation between a good man and a man of resourcefulness, resiliency, and a man of laziness, is choice. What's so fascinating is if you honestly think about your life, all it is a never ending series of choices. The choices never stop. Everything you do at every second is a choice. Most of them are subconscious, some of them are conscious. We're constantly making decisions. The important thing that as a man, what's going to make a good man a great man is him more often than not making good choices. If you make a bad choice, it's going to happen. We're human. We're infallible. We're fallible creatures. Follow that up with a good choice and another good choice. And that's how your progress will be made. And that's how you're going to be able to tangibly see it, because you're going to continually make more good choices than bad choices.
It's an interesting point you made about the difference between a good man and a bad man is razor thin. I'm going to push on you a little bit there,
Yeah.
because the way I look at it is there's a good man, there's a bad man, and there's a large scale in between of the what I'll call the apathetic man, right? Because the man who's not taking action, I don't know that he's necessarily a bad man.
Right.
My opinion is the good man is making good decisions for, 95% of the time, to put a number on it. And the bad man is making bad decisions 95% of the time. But there's a whole lot of gray in there. And I think a lot of that is the guys we're talking to right now, of the apathetic man who is just trying to get by. And he's doing his best. He's maybe not making the hard and good decisions, but he knows enough not to make the bad decisions. What are your thoughts on that?
I would argue that an apathetic man is not trying to constantly make good decisions. An apathetic man is okay skirting by. He's okay half-assing it.
But
There
is
are going
that
to
a
be good.
bad man?
No. I mean, ultimately, I did present it as a linear option, and it's very much a spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
There are good choices, bad choices, and technically there are neutral choices as well. The difference being an apathetic man is consistently making choices to not better himself or his situation. He may want to. There might be something within him that compels him to, but he is not choosing to act on what's compelling.
I would
Maybe he
agree with
does
that.
sometimes. Maybe he does sometimes, but I'll tell you, he does not more often than he does.
It's a man who, the right decision isn't always a hard decision or the hard work, but it's the man who doesn't necessarily always who chooses the path of least resistance more often than he chooses the right path.
Yeah. Yeah.
Path of least resistance may be the right path in certain options, but for the most part, it usually isn't.
Absolutely. It's easy, and ease and comfort they feel a whole lot more appealing, because when you're making a difficult choice, and there are plenty of examples where making the right choice is an easy choice, but there are arguably more where making the correct choice is hard.
Mm-hmm.
When you're making a hard choice, when you're doing a hard thing, we have some of these emotional responses. We feel fear, we feel trepidation. I mean, trepidation and fear are kind of the same thing. But
Doubt.
yeah, that's a good one. And when those things creep up, those become barriers. And those barriers can sure dissuade many a man. Even the best of men run into some of those barriers and make a poor choice.
Absolutely.
That's what's so interesting about it, is a man who's on the path isn't making the consistently right choice 100% of the time. Not even close. He's making some neutral choices. He's making some bad choices. But he's making more good choices than he is neutral, apathetic, or bad choices.
Yep.
So just keep going. I mean, if you've got 10 chances and you get 6 right, you're moving forward.
And that's it. This whole process is about just bettering your average. For lack of a better picture, it's bettering that average and making sure that you're picking more of the right choices than the wrong choices. You're going to fall off that wagon. You're going to make a bad decision here and there, or you're going to consciously decide, maybe not making the bad decision, but consciously decide not to make the good decision. Much like you and I have both talked about with, the parties that we've gone to recently. We both consciously made the decision to not make the healthy decision, which would probably be considered the good decision. But it's about that next decision. And, will tomorrow I wake up, will I go to the gym? Will I eat correctly? Will I get back on the horse? Damn right I will. Because long term, I have goals and I have a certain persona that I want to live up to. I'm sure the same is true for you. It's avoiding the temptation to go, well, you know what? Today was a crap day. So if I eat like crap tomorrow and don't work out, nobody's going to care. And then all of a sudden that 2 days turns into a week, turns into a month, turns into a year. And all of a sudden you're sitting there going, how did I get to be 300 pounds? Oh, it's because I didn't give a shit. So
yeah,
give a shit.
Give a shit. I love it. That's I don't know. I don't really have anything to add. Like that's a pretty good wrap.
Well, that's probably a good place to wrap it up then. I appreciate it, man. This was a good conversation. It was a little off the cuff tonight. We had to throw together a topic, but I really appreciate this. I think it was pretty relevant, especially considering this will drop right before New Year's. So happy New Year's to all the listeners. Happy New Year's to you too, Brad. We thank the guys for listening. We're getting really close to our 1 year anniversary here. So we want to thank you guys for listening to us. It's been a pleasure being able to talk to you for the last year, and we're looking forward to what we bring into the new year. So with that in mind, we're going to give you the same thing that we tell you every week. It's check us out at untamingmasculinity.com. You can find all our show notes. You'll find this show notes, all of our past show notes. You'll find links to our social media as well. We've really been concentrating on getting more engagement, especially on Instagram. So please join us there. Check us out. And make sure that you're also leaving a rating and review in your podcast players. That helps us, especially the reviews. So the ratings help, but the reviews really help spread the word. It's how the magic happens in their algorithm. So leave us a rating and review there. Let us know what's going on. Let us know what you think. That helps us spread the word to other men and get our message out. Finally, just keep coming back. Keep listening. We've got some pretty good interviews lined up for the new year. So we're hoping that you guys come back and listen to us and get involved in the conversations. And until then, we will leave you with just one question. What are you doing to untame your masculinity?